So next round is going to be Luca against Jairo Contreras, both players that we've featured pretty recently. Jairo, you saw him win his top 8 game with that very aggressive Calyrex Shadow and double extreme speed user team. And Luca was using something very similar to what Eric Rios was using at the European Regionals recently with a Calm Mind Lunala with that Terrafarian access to Moonblast.
Yeah, and we got to see both of these teams earlier. Although not against each other, we got to see how both of the teams kind of operate. Luca's slow and methodical, and Jairo kind of just clicking the gas pedal and clicking damaging buttons into this, getting into a spot where you can click the extreme speeds and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see how these two different playstyles kind of mesh up against each other and kind of how the game will end out.
Yeah, very interesting to see what'll happen here. I think we would be good to get the team sheets for the next players just so we can remind ourselves what kind of teams they're using. I'm sure they're just getting set up right now. It's not very often that you get to stream 2 top 4 games at a local like this, so I'm sure those guys have just been hanging out for a while, maybe taking a little bit of a breather before they have to get back into the action.
Yeah, and it's been a high-intensity day for sure, so a break is definitely appreciated by the players. I will say about with the teams, though, the cool thing is that Lunala has the Calm Mind on it, and I remember Jairo's Entei has Assault Vest, and it's Terra Normal. So Entei normally being that fire type, able to resist those Moon Blasts, and then on top of that, not take too much from Moongeist Beam, and then also having the opportunity to be immune to the Moongeist Beam as well when it goes Terra Normal, and having access to moves like Crunch and Sacred Fire for the rest of Luca's team, and then also Inner Focus on top of that. If I were to make a guess, I think Entei is going to be one of those pivotal pieces in the matchup.
Don't forget that on Luca's side, though, there is just going to be that very standard, like, I forget if it's like what the Urshifu item is, but there is a pretty standard Urshifu water on the team that I think is really one of those matchups Entei is hoping to dodge or hoping to get a little bit of help from its friends in dealing with. So I think that is definitely going to be one of the responses that Luca is looking for to deal with the Entei.
Absolutely, and with things like the
I'm lying.
Rillaboom
There's no Urshifu on the team. This must be the first player in history to build a fire water grass. Sorry, not even fire water grass core. To build one of these sorts. Yeah, just fire grass.
Fire grass core, new meta. Who needs a water type when you have an Ogerpon? I feel like it's a common trend we've seen though. Maybe not no Urshifu, but at least doubling up on your grass type in a Moongus and Rillaboom sometimes. But mainly the Ogerpon and Rillaboom we've seen pair up a lot. Something I kind of miss is earlier in the regulation, or this might have been a different format, is when people ran the Hearthflame Ogerpon with Rillaboom, and they ran the double Grassy Blow.
Yeah.
That was always super fun because you had the double priority with the +1 and all sorts of different opportunities. But this one instead, a lot of people have opted for Cornerstone because of how the Ogerpon builds have kind of played out. Yes, you have the Hearthflames that are bulky, like Justin Tanks, for example, but the Ogerpon Cornerstone has the ability to do that, but not be weak to opposing Cornerstone like the Hearthflame is. And then on top of that, you have Sturdy as well, just in case you need to live a crazy hit.
I think rock coverage is also just a huge deal. Like, let's say, I guess we're really thinking about hitting Incin when we think about having rock coverage or being reliable against other things. I'm sure there's also Water Ogerpon to do those, but Water Ogerpon's like defensive typing. Its ability aren't doing anything like too remarkable in the format. It's definitely an okay Pokemon. Rockpon kind of just combines a lot of these like really unique traits. I love the way the Ogerpons are designed. Like, they're all so fun to use. I think they're like very interesting and healthy Pokemon to kind of have at the forefront of the metagame.
Yeah, I think of a Pokemon like Ogerpon, and then I look at a Pokemon like Zacian, and I'm like, wait, the same people cannot have designed both of these Pokemon. I think the fact that there's 4 forms of Ogerpon, I mean, in VGC, basically 3, but there's 4 forms of Ogerpon. Poor Teal Mask.
Don't let Shiliang hear you say that.
Look, Chilang, I apologize. You know, maybe I'll put more respect on Teal Mask. Bring it to an event, please. Prove me wrong. I love Teal Mask. But, again, Cornerstone and Heart of Flame have kind of shot up. And as you mentioned as well, Wellspring has kind of fallen down. We saw it a little bit earlier when things like Urshifu were more prevalent. I actually expected to see maybe a little bit more usage in Regulation I when things like Kyogre are more prevalent as a second restricted on teams. You have a little bit more flexibility there to run the other Ogerpon. But besides that, I'm getting a little off topic.
Yeah, and even in the current format, having that water absorb to come in on something like Urshifu is great. Problem with Urshifu is that it can also just hit you with a close combat if it suspects you're about to hit the field. A lot of the time, those Urshifu are going to have a focus sash, so even if you hit them with a grass move, like kind of abuse that positive matchup, they're still going to stick around for a little bit longer. Like you said, probably going to be a little bit more of an regulation just because it is such a complete counter to those Kyogres. What else could be going on in this match? Maybe we'll see a Raging Bolt sent out during this tournament for the first time. Wouldn't that be shocking?
Yeah, no Raging Bolt today. I mean, we could talk about our statistics. We've gotten to see them briefly, but Raging Bolt being like the first stream game of all day would have been insane. And I actually think it has an okay matchup here. Being able to fire off super effective damage into the Tornadus and do consistent damage to both Rillaboom and Incineroar in something like the Dragon Pulse and the Thunderbolt does actually a really good job at doing damage to a lot of the Pokemon on Luca's team. Even against the Lunala, maybe you don't want to take a Moonblast, so you might be disincentivized to bring it, but a Thunderbolt into a non-calm-minded Lunala without the Shadow Shield is doing a lot of damage.
Let's think for 1 second about Terra types in this matchup. I kind of imagine similar to last game, like it's just going to be Terra Fairy Lunala from Luca's side. I think getting rid of that Ghost and Psychic typing is so essential to what we're doing here. Otherwise, there's just like really a lot of different Pokemon in this team. Like the Entei, the Chenpao, and the Calyrex Shadow are all going to be capable of hitting Lunala for a deadly 4 times weakness if it doesn't use the Terra Fairy. But once you turn into a Terra Fairy, there's nothing on the team hitting you for better than neutral damage.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting here. I think Terra Fairy is going to be the choice for Luca here. Just immediately looking at the sheet, there's nothing else that I could see that really is maybe too nice for Luca. You might think at first Terra Ghost on the Incineroar is really nice at avoiding those extreme speeds, but you don't really need to. You can take the damage. You have the Rocky Helmet to kind of punish any attacks, physical attacks into that Incineroar. The Lunala able to just have that Fairy instead, that nice typing against a lot of these damaging moves. These 4 times super effective moves, as you mentioned, is going to be way more impactful than making sure your Incineroar lives in extreme speed or 2.
And on Jairo's side, I think like you'd already touched on this, but both of the Terra Normals look really good. This matchup is super unique in that there's not an Urshifu on it. You can turn into a normal type. It's kind of the same thing that we were talking about before. It just guarantees there's nothing hitting you for better than neutral damage. In the case of Lunala especially, it means no Moongeist beams. I mean, Moonblast is about as strong, so maybe that's like not the most important victory, but still it means that your Entei is not going to get too messed up by something like the Rock Pond.
And normally, I think actually on this team, I know Jairo, the way they play is kind of very offensive with the Entei and just inherently with the extreme speeds. But if something like Snarl was on the Entei, that could be a little bit more dangerous for Luca. But we see here immediately a Tornadus and a Lunala here from Luca and a Dragonite and Calyrex Shadow from Jairo.
Dragonite logged in that choice bad extreme speed, Terra Normal, before we could like even see before we could think about this board state for a couple seconds. I was gonna say like, oh wow, I'm a little surprised both players are leading off so aggressively. Jairo just getting right to business with this extreme speed. One important thing to note about Tornadus is like based on how it's trained, this can either be a one-shot knockout or not. I feel like on a team like Luca's, this is very likely to fall a little bit short of a knockout though.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the Pokemon in this team have just amazing bulk. Tornadus there going for a Protect, though, just trying to see what this Dragonite wants to go for, as well as the Lunala. And without a threat of something like the Nasty Paw on the Calyrex Shadow Rider, this is a very safe play that Luca can go for to just see what the Dragonite wants to lock into and then playing off.
Oh, exactly. One of Dragonite's worst weaknesses is just like safe double protects like this. Luca's gathered so much information about what Dragonite's plans are right now. I want to correct something. Tornadus, I'm thinking about those knockouts from extreme speed when Chenpao is in play. If there's not a Chenpao on the field, the Tornadus is not going down to one of these. That could end up being even better for Jairo, though, because it means that the extreme speed followed up by an Astral Barrage would be enough to get rid of the Tornadus and give the Calyrex a Grimnay boost. However, I wouldn't be shocked if we see Lunala going on the offensive here. Taking an Astral Barrage isn't fun, but if you don't use up your Terra, you can say as a Ghost type and just not have to worry about extreme speed on future turns.
And no Terrestrialization here on the Lunala, just accepting that's going to have to be an Astral Barrage potentially. The Tailwind coming out from the Tornadus after living that extreme speed Moongeist Beam following up into this Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to do so much damage and bring it down to that focus sash. Lunala, I guess, is okay with taking the damage here if it means it saves Terrestrialization for something else. I'm a bit interested in that play from Luca.
Yeah, I think really hanging on, like, jeez, that's a little more than I expected. I mean, it's Calyrex Shadow. I probably should not be shocked, but I wasn't sure exactly like how bulky the Lunala on these teams were trained to be. You know, with leftovers, maybe even Grassy trained in the back, Lunala is going to have a chance to start getting back some of that HP. If I'm Jairo right now, I'm thinking like, I really need to save this Calyrex for when Tailwind runs out, because if you leave it in right now, you're just liable to go down to about anything. But if you can save it, maybe figure out a way to like keep it away from something like a Rillaboom Grassy Glide, having that barrage later is going to be good. I think, unfortunately, you just have to treat the Grimnay boost that you have right now almost as if it's not there.
I think maybe the thought process behind Luca keeping the Lunala unterrestrialized is maybe you don't want an endgame where the extreme speed, you've chipped down the Lunala. We saw how much it did before, so chipping down the Lunala with the Astral Barrages, then getting it in a range of extreme speed, you kind of lose slower. So allowing the Lunala to just not be hit by extreme speed later in the game is potentially a play from Luca to try to preserve that end game, that opportunity to wall the Dragonite later. Rillaboom here is in a decent spot. It's going to give more recovery to the Lunala as well. At least one turn of recovery and the Grassy Train and leftovers. As you can go into the Calyrex, you can attack into the Dragonite. I think Luca has a lot of flexibility here in what he wants to do. You can even go for a Wood Hammer here into the Dragonite slot if you wanted to and do a lot of damage. Instead here, the Calyrex Shadow for Jairo is going to switch into the Chien-Pao, and that's going to mean the extreme speeds here are going to do tons more damage to the Rillaboom. But if this is a Wood Hammer into the Dragonite, that could be a lot of damage. Calm Mind there from Lunala.
Ooh, Calm Mind. So Lunala didn't have any boost, and it's fighting like a normal type, and I guess this could have been something like a Moonblast into the Pao. If this is... Ooh, you turned into Chien-Pao. Like, that's a decent play. However, I might still have to give, like, Jairo's side the advantage here. I feel like that's just so much... He has so much damage on, like, Rillaboom, on the Lunala. Ogerpon, like... I really see in the cards a Astral Barrage sweep later in the game.
Absolutely. I mean, Luca did weave in a Calm Mind boost, and with something like Terra Fairy, you can maybe hope. But something like a Sucker Punch, again, we talk about those extreme speed and follow me games here. Whichever is faster is going to be the Pokemon that is able to get off its priority move first, that being the extreme speed or the follow me. And you kind of have to choose what you want to do with your Chien-Pao here. You could go for a Sucker Punch into the Lunala. That will unfortunately be slower than the follow me, but the extreme speed will be able to be faster. Break that sturdy on the Ogerpon. And if you follow up with something like from this Life Orb Chien-Pao, you will probably be able to knock out this Ogerpon. Of course, it has the opportunity to go for something like a Spiky Shield as well, though, so you kind of have to play around that if you are Jairo.
This is one of those turns that's interesting. Like, it's just so hard to say exactly what's going on because we're only looking at Pokemon with single target moves here. There's a lot of room for, like, one of these players to come up with a really dominant play if they think they know exactly what their opponent is doing. I think on Jairo's side, like, this must just be an extreme speed. Yep, pointed at the Ogerpon. This is probably going to be doing, let's see, around half damage maybe. Ooh, not actually too impressive. Right, because we know that this is such a bulky Ogerpon. Ooh, due to the Sword of Ruin, that's Dragonite going down in a single power. Oh, Sword of Ruin and Grassy Drain.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's just a lot of multipliers. I think Luca very happy with that turn. If the Chien-Pao did decide to double into that Ogerpon, that would have been a very detrimental turn, but Luca getting that correct and knocking out the Dragonite using Jairo's own Chien-Pao Sword of Ruin against himself.
So we're going to have a reveal of, like, the Pokemon Jairo has in the back here. So it's Calyrex on one, and then Ogerpon on full. I feel like something that Jairo could still try and come back into this game with is really using that Ogerpon for redirection, because when I was talking about Pokemon with single target moves, the only exception is the Calyrex Shadow. So if you get your own Ogerpon Rock next to it, you can spam Astral Barrage and follow me to your heart's content, and your Calyrex Shadow is not going to go down just like that. I guess Lunala does have the Moongeist Beam happens to ignore abilities. I don't know if that would mean that it can get rid of Ogerpon in one hit, though. With one Moongeist Beam.
That is the scary part here, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, you are a +1. There is a chance. The scary part that I'm more worried about is trying to find what you're going to do after Tailwind, because Luca's Tailwind is running out of turns very slowly, and you have to figure out what you want to do with it. I mean, I think Luca got this turn correctly as well as the Calyrex went for a Protect here on Jairo's side, and we see a Terastallization come out as well. This is going to be Luca's Lunala, and the Terra Fairy here to make sure you maybe eat the Astral Barrage with +1. It's kind of scary, though.
Yeah, I have a feeling like Lunala is going to be able to take one Astral Barrage at this point, which is like really colossal. If Chen Pao could weaken this Lunala with a Sucker Punch, though, I'm not so sure about that. Where is this Lunala's attack going to go? Oh, this is a Moonblast to finish off the Pao.
And with Rillaboom back on the field now, not only are you threatening Fake Out, but you're threatening a huge Grassy Glide into something like this 1 HP Calyrex Shadow Rider. With Grassy Terrain up as well, that's going to be super big and allow Luca to knock out that threat before it can even touch the Lunala.
I don't think this Lunala is going down to one Astral Barrage right now. And Jairo is so limited on HP. Like, sure, there is an Ogerpon. In fact, the Ogerpon can redirect these single target moves. But the thing is, I think you are running out of time very, very quickly. If your Calyrex cannot remove this Lunala with, like, one fell Astral Barrage, I'm not sure what is going to be possible. Actually, this could just be something like, if you follow me and you don't go down, like, you know, as long as your Ogerpon doesn't go down to one Moongeist. Oh, wait, it's follow me and then attack the horse. Totally makes sense.
Absolutely, and we see Astral Barrage fire out here. Let's see if this +1 on the Calm Mind is enough to knock out the Lunala. It's not, and the Lunala is going to hang on in the red there with that +1 Calm Mind. That did no damage, that felt like.
Yeah, Calyrex getting a Grimnay boost, but I don't think it's going to be able to hang on to it for very long.
And with Luca having their own Ogerpon in the back as well, is going to be redirect any damage that Jairo can do with their Ogerpon, and that's going to be a game 1 here for Luca, it looks like.
I don't think this is quite over yet. So on Jairo's side, we do see that this Ogerpon has Horn Leech, which is going to be just a little bit stronger than Ivy Cudgel with the grass up. I don't know if this is all the way over yet. You probably need a crit on that Ogerpon.
Yeah, I mean, actually, if you get a Horn Leech critical hit onto Luca's Ogerpon, you are able to heal a decent amount. The Moongeist Beam does ignore that sturdy there on the Ogerpon, but
I don't know if Lunala can actually get rid of Ogerpon at +1. I think that's something it might need a +2 for. However, it does look like Jairo's Ogerpon is probably on the frailer side, so I guess we'll see. If you're Luca, I feel like you're probably just deciding between like going for a double protect or just going for like the follow me and the attack.
Yeah, I mean, again, it really is coming down to if this Horn Leech can do enough. Ivy Cudgel just being the
better
move of
crit
choice.
chance. Ooh!
I mean, we see it get the knockout, no critical.
Let's see if Ogerpon can live one of these Moongeist Beams now. That is what the game is going to come down to. Because I think if Ogerpon survives these, I don't know if Lunala wants to take that Cudgel.
Oh, it actually hangs on. I spoke way too soon. I apologize. Wow. And Lunala is not able to knock out where that Bulk was able to live against that Astral Barrage. It fails to get the knockout against that Ogerpon. And yeah, the Grassy Terrain is gone now.
Yeah, oh, you know what? Grassy Terrain only gives you a 30% boost on grass moves, so Horn Leech is still a little bit weaker than Cudgel. This is super safe protect from Luca Paz. He's always going for one of these and then just hoping he can live the next Cudgel, and I definitely think it's possible. Wow, I'm shocked that I don't know enough about Lunala EVs here.
Yeah, wow, that's actually a lot of HP. That's going to be very close.
This is like the max attack, like Ogerpon. You see that HP is that, you know, this is just like pick your nature, slide those bars.
Oh, wow.
I think Ogerpon gets it. Ogerpon gets it.
And that's going to be game 1 for Jairo. I think actually if Luca wasn't sure if the Lunala if the Ogerpon gets knocked out there, you go for a double protect. You would have had one more turn you would have had one more turn of recovery, and maybe that would have been the differential. So small turns like that really do factor into how a game ends. And I mean, we were going back and forth there for those last 3 turns. We had no idea who was going to win. It really did come down to those lefties and those Grassy Terrain turns.
Yeah. God, I love these games where, like, the pressure really feels like it's going back and forth. Like, Jairo had a pretty oppressive start, and then the mid-game really felt like Luca was the one in the driver's seat, and then the end game, it was just like, it could be anyone's race.
Yeah, and I think both of the players played that really well. Just, again, even though it was kind of faster, both players recognize what their end game was, and that's something we've kind of highlighted throughout the day today is players who really recognize what the end game is supposed to look like, what their end board is supposed to look like, what the goal is against certain teams, and how you get there. And I think Jairo did a great job at positioning something like that Shadow Rider, where you had to switch it out. Yes, it went down to Focus Sash because of the Moongeist beam, but switching it out, preserving it so you had the right time, right place to fire off another Astral Barrage and then follow it up with your Ogre Pawn in the back. Again, Jairo did a great job at that.
I think Jairo is really someone that plays with the mentality of, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Jairo is someone who's very willing to run back, like, a game plan across multiple games. A lot of VGC players do this, but I think in the case of someone like Jairo who's using, like, slightly more offensive teams where it really can be difficult to find solutions to things like, I don't know, think things like a Choice Specs Make It Rain or a Dragonite's, like, Choice Band Extreme Speed or Sash Calyrex just clicking Astral Barrage every turn because you don't have a wide guard on the team. I don't know if there's going to be that much reason for Jairo to change up his approach from that game. I guess the Pokemon we didn't see are the Entei, which is surprising since we both seem to agree Entei is pretty strong in the matchup. We didn't see Raging Bolt. That one I think I can get a little bit more. I don't really want to bring Raging Bolt against like a Rillaboom especially. It doesn't want to fight, but also Lunala that you know is looking to get a Calm Mind and then click Moonblast when you don't have Protect on the set.
I think the reason why maybe Jairo went for the Dragonite instead of the Entei is maybe valuing the consistent damage that the Dragonite offers with the Choice Band over something like the Assault Vest Entei, which isn't doing as much, but maybe has more defensive staying power. Kind of putting your foot on the pedal there and pressing the gas and just trying to do as much damage as possible between that Astral Barrage, the Ivy Cudgel, and the Extreme Speeds. And if you had something like Entei are doing slightly less, and I mean, we saw at the end game of that game one, that slight less could be slightly more, and the reason why you win the game. So we see the Dragonite and the Calyrex be the same lead here from Jairo, and Luca lead with the Ogre, Pawn, Cornerstone, and Incineroar.
Oh my gosh, it looks like Jairo is just hovering over like low kick the instant Astral Barrage turn one. This is a crapped out play in a way that I kind of like. Like if you're going for a low kick here, you must know like how much this is capable of doing. I'm pretty sure low kick. Oh, I don't think we're seeing a low kick.
Yeah, no lick coming out.
Goodbye, Dragonite.
Ivy Cudgel going to be the move of choice there into the Dragonite. That's going to be a one-hit KO there. Knockoff going into the Calyrex. This is a pretty good turn for Luke, if I have to say so myself.
That's an understatement. I think like really being able to just stop that Dragonite from doing anything there is absolutely colossal. I'm a little surprised that Dragonite... Actually, wait a second. This is not so bad for Jairo. I think that's the interesting thing about these like Sash Calyrex teams is like there's absolutely a right time and a wrong time for one of your Pokemon to go down. I think Dragonite going down there was like really not such a bad thing. Did we see the horse go for... I wonder why this is Psychic instead of Barrage. I mean, if this is something like Ivy Cudgel to get rid of Instant, it's not going to end up mattering.
Yeah, I think Ivy Cudgel here is what the move of choice was. I still actually agree that Barrage is probably just the better. Just in case the Incineroar switches out, you could catch something on the side. I think a lot of the times you want to just be clicking that spread damage, and you're able to, do chip, and just in case something like the Screamtail potentially came in. But Screamtail being the Pokemon of choice here is really, really interesting because that most likely means Lunala is the last.
So no Rilla. I guess Rilla didn't look like stellar last game. Like I get this decision. Still, it's like, is Screamtail the right Pokemon to go into when there's an Ogerpon here that can, like, redirect the first move that Screamtail wants to go for very easily? I wonder.
But with Dazzling Gleam, I think
Dazzling Gleam, of course,
on the Screamtail,
I forgot
being
Screamtail,
able to ignore
the famous
redirect.
offensive threat.
Yeah.
Save Dazzling Gleam.
Screamtail, the offensive consistent threat, able to do consistent 1 damage to both of the Pokemon.
Oh, no. Ogerpon. Okay. Ogerpon valiantly fighting back against Screamtail, but, like, Screamtail... in exchange for those Dazzling Gleams doing, like, about 10%, your Screamtail gets to be pretty bulky. It's going to create, like, kind of invisible room for your Ogerpon to attack like that. This Screamtail is, like, kind of the perfect Pokemon to go into.
It's bulky, and it does just 1 damage, which was all you need in this instance. And I think Luca recognizing that, a lot of people, I feel, could be afraid to bring Screamtail here. There's Follow Me, there's... two choice bandit, like there's a choice bandit Pokemon that doesn't mind being locked into a move. I mean, of course you could disable it, but I think Screamtail's like kind of perfect here. You know you're able to consistently bring this Kyrex down to Focus Sash, either between the Lunala or the Kyrex. So bringing it to Focus Sash and then guaranteeing you can just do 1 damage with the Dazzling Gleam is actually a really unique solution to this problem that Luca had.
Calyrex Shadow, get out of here. Screamtail is like the new dominant spread attacker in the format. We are going to see, Chen-Pao not really the Pokemon that you want to have to send in against like a Screamtail with super effective coverage against you either. One really big question here that could change the outcome of this game, can Ogerpon live 1 more Dazzling Gleam? It looks like Jairo doesn't think so if he's trying to protect the Ogerpon, but if Screamtail was able to live 1 more, you could be doing something like have your Chen-Pao go after the Ogerpon, and then your Screamtail go after the... Sorry, your Ogerpon go after the Screamtail, and with the Sword of Ruin boost, probably get rid of it. I feel like we saw that last Dazzling Gleam do around the 25 points of HP that the Ogerpon has left.
Yeah, I think even if both Pokemon for Luca here go down, I mean, we see a double try to happen. The Follow Me is going to come out there. I think I actually like attacking with the...
Ooh, Encore instead.
Oh, that's interesting. I like the attack better with the Ogerpon, but I mean, this play makes a lot of sense from Luca as well if you're playing for Jairo to go for the Spiky Shield.
Yeah, and even like... Maybe the Encore is a little bit safer there, because let's think about the things that Ogerpon could do. If you try to protect and then you fail, you're getting Encore locked. If you try to attack, you got Encore locked and then go into protect. I feel like if Luca went for this, it was probably like a pretty safe play, and he had figured that out. Because I guess worst case, you Encore a Follow Me, but then your Lunala can like... I don't know. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, Fairy-type Lunala still easily beats Chen-Pao at that point.
Yeah, and I forgot Luca had Terrestrialization as well. I mean, we saw this Lunala go down to almost red in the game 1 in the first turn, and now we see it at full HP with a Terrestrialization against Jairo's last 2 Pokemon. And obviously, this is a lot better of a scenario considering the Ogerpon can't even follow me away the damage. And this is a free Moongeist Beam considering it has no Focus Hash either.
Yup. Absolutely.
And an Encore there into the Ice Spinner. Not even risking, I mean, if they go for a Sucker Punch, if you don't Terrestrialize, there's just no world where you can break through the Shadow Shield and get a critical hit. And Oko the Lunala, you just kind of drop to this Moongeist Beam. And this game, too, I'm a lot more confident saying Luca takes it.
Yeah. Gosh, like, let's think about the opening of this game again, because a little bit like last game, it feels like the opening, it looked like maybe either player kind of could come out on top, and then after a few turns, it was a little bit more clear who kind of had the lead from it. In this case, I really don't think Jairo went for a play that was so crazy, but it was a play that he knew the risks, and he did get burned, like losing Dragonite before it could do anything compared to last game, where it was like, what, Extreme Speed clicked something like 4 turns in a row, and all of them connected for pretty meaningful damage. I wonder what Jairo wants to do differently in the next game. Like, even in this game, if he had just been a little bit more willing to pop Paranormal on that Dragonite right away, we might have seen a very different outcome here.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe Jairo getting tripped up in, like, you don't necessarily need to Terrestrialize to click the suit, like the stab type move with it. I think the Terra Normal there, again, like you said, to not get knocked out by the Ivy Cudgel is more impactful than getting the extreme speed bonus that you do when you Terra Normal. It's not about getting the Terra Normal boost in that instance. It's about surviving the turn so that you can go for a low kick in that Incineroar. And I think if we did see that Terra Normal, that would have been a completely different game.
Still, I think this Screamtail is actually going to be a huge game changer in terms of how this is playing. Like, really a Pokemon that Luca might be kicking himself for not bringing game 1 at this point based on how good it looked in that game 2. Like when Jairo's got Dragonite as one of his like deciding Pokemon when there's a Calyrex Shadow, which you have ample ways to knock to Focus Sash. Screamtail to kind of just like wrap up those situations is going to be like so nice to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the time as well, players, again, kind of underestimate how much that Screamtail could do or overestimate it. In this case, I think Screamtail is perfect, actually. Again, the choice band Pokemon, yes, you don't want to Encore, but you can disable it, and that's going to be big because that's only 1 move you have to click compared to the 2 that you normally have to kind of get that Encore disable lock that Screamtail normally likes to do.
Even if Jairo was to try and save, like, let's say, do a more of a late-game sweep with Dragonite, I don't exactly want to have to fight a late-game, like, Dragonite versus Lunala matchup. What if the Lunala just, like, doesn't feel pressured to use its Terra, and then I'm wasting my Extreme Speeds? If you're Dragonite, you have to lock into Extreme Speeds. speed against Screamtail.
Absolutely.
It is Grass Screamtail, so it can't do anything to get rid of that. Ooh, Raging Bolt! Raging Bolt showing up for the first time today. You're late to the party, buddy.
We actually do get to see the Raging Bolt today, which is exactly what I wanted to see. I think this is the adjustment that you kind of like, where a lot of the Pokemon, like the Rillaboom on Luca's side, aren't on the field anymore. So you actually get to play around with the Thunderbolt and do consistent damage with it.
One thing that I do kind of like about this is one thing that I kind of identified, like when we have the team sheets, is like I think Electro Web is kind of deceptively good here. Lunala especially is a Pokemon that's going to give you a couple dead turns if it's trying to go for Calm Mind, and if you can use an Electro Web to like basically say, okay, there's your dead turn, here's -1 speed that you're going to stick with. You're going to try and set up, and you're just going to be straddled with this for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that Extreme Speed doesn't do nearly as much without the Chien-Pao on the field. Does 50% to that Dragonite, though, and Moongeist Beam not going to affect it. So no Terrestrialization. I like that double up, a little bit risky, but you're able to do about a little bit of damage to the Dragonite. The Electro Web, though, is going to be the big move of choice there, or choice of move there, where you're able to break the Shadow Shield, and it doesn't come back with the leftovers. And then you're also lowering the speed of both Pokemon here.
Depending on how this Raging Bolt is trained, it's also going to be like fully capable of just outrunning the Ogerpon and finishing it off with a Dragon Pulse here if your Dragonite isn't capable of that, or if you want to get Dragonite off the field. Ogerpon feeling the pressure and going for a Spiky Shield.
Absolutely. I mean, more chip damage on this Pokemon is going to be good. Lunala just going for a Protector to regain its Shadow Shield, Extreme Speed, going into the Spiky Shield. You kind of have to make sure you get the knockout on it, potentially. But something Luca could do next turn is switch in something like maybe the Incineroar and get even more chip with the Rocky Helmet and kind of whittle down this Dragonite and have it kind of knock itself out.
Yeah, Dragonite's positioning here is interesting. Like, I think... So, it feels like Jairo is playing pretty fast and loose with it. I don't think that's that crazy. Not addressing the Ogerpon. Like, this Extreme Speed is not going to finish off Ogerpon just yet. Oh, okay, I'm wrong. Dragonite did a little bit.
I think with the Electro...
Dragonite tried
I mean,
a little
there's a
harder
critical
that
hit.
time. I don't think that was knocking out without the crit. We saw the last one do 40, and that was more like 50.
I was thinking maybe with the Electro Webs, there's a chance, but the Thunderbolt following up, that critical hit is definitely something Luca
Lunala
didn't
wanted to get
see.
back Shadow Shield last turn. That completely makes sense.
Exactly. And Moonblast there, firing off from the Raging Bolt. Special attack drop, you're going to take that.
Special attack drop is really big when this is a booster energy bolt. If it swaps out to like get rid of the special attack drop, it's basically just going back to like, it's at neutral right now, and if it swaps out, it'll still be at neutral. The booster energy might as well be gone right now.
Absolutely. I think the most important thing is Luca's not burnt Terrestrialization yet. We see Screamtail be the Pokemon of choice here, which is a bit interesting considering it is grass and not something like that goes, so it won't be immune to these extreme speeds. You could disable the Dragonite, and that could be a very pivotal turn for you, and you could kind of play around that. I think something like a disable into the Dragonite and going for kind of a free-ish Calm Mind here could be a potential turn for Luca.
One thing that's kind of nice about disable on the Dragonite is as soon as you connect that, your Lunala is free to turn into a Fairy type, and it doesn't have to worry about like really any big downside of that. Like besides taking neutral from the extreme speed, Terra Fairy Lunala is just like an upgrade over the Ghost and Psychic Lunala in every other way.
Yeah, and I think, again, the Screamtail here is really going to be the make or break for how the rest of this game turns out if Luca is able to get the turns correctly and kind of play around the certain slots. We see a Protect there, though. Again, just burning those extreme speeds. It does have limited amounts of time that it can click it. Extreme speed there, I believe that's like the 4th or 5th time almost, so maybe almost only 3 more turns it can maybe click this move.
Ooh, a Thunderclap.
Maybe
hold on. What was Thunderclap for there?
Maybe
that double up was not
Dazzling
even.
Gleam?
That double up was not going to be able to knock out Screamtail. Not like, especially after connecting the Electro Web on the Lunala, not getting it with a Thunderbolt. Oh, you know what? He might have been trying to play around Screamtail there.
Yeah,
because I think
get
we'd
around
seen
an Encore
Thunderbolt the previous
disable.
turn.
Yeah,
I don't know. Even in that case, like, would it really have been that bad to just like, I don't know, click Dragon Pulse on the Luna? I guess Dragon Pulse would also be really spooky to get locked into, but still.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of scary, but we're down to 4 extreme speeds already. The Calyrex does come in here, though. You have to be very, very smart with what you terrestrialize here, though, because both of these Pokemon do not want to take an Astral Barrage on Luca's side.
Yeah, so let's think about this for a second. If Lunala doesn't Terra, the Astral Bros is just going to get a knockout on it. Like, we saw even at full HP, it was taking colossal amounts of damage from it. What is Screamtail doing here? Is this going to be, like, disable the Dragonite and just accept that you're going down to the Barrage here?
It could be
it's not
that,
like you could do anything to the Calyrex. Like, sure, you could Dazzling Gleam to break Focus Sash, but I think you kind of just have to settle for this hit on Dragonite right now.
And I don't mind this play. The other play you could have gone for is the Terra Fairy and done this, or gone for like a Moongeist Beam, Terrasilize, and then also disable still with the Screamtail. I think another play you could have gone, but the reason you disable there is you can now safely Terra Fairy in front of this Dragonite, and what you can do is, because you've burnt so many turns at the extreme speed, Luca has that foresight now with the Terrasalization, with the Protects, you can kind of burn out those extreme speed turns. You actually do win the 1v1 against the Dragonite later.
Oh, and I was really expecting this to... Oh, I had completely forgotten that we saw Ogerpon go down. I thought this was going to be Ogerpon in the pack, and it's very different that this is Incin now.
Yeah, Ogerpon going down to that critical hit extreme speed was very, very big. And Incineroar here being able to knock off something like the Calyrex. Again, Dragonite can't do anything, so Incineroar against this Terra Blast, Astral Barrage, Incineroar actually is going to be able to live the turn very comfortably and knock off the Calyrex. And with a follow-up of Terra Fairy, which is, again, very safe from Luca, this is a really, really well-played position. I think sacrificing the Screamtail there was really, really good.
So we're seeing Astral Barrage come out here. I still think this is a completely forced Terra Fairy from the Lunala. It is Terra Fairy or you hope for a double protect, and I don't think the position is so bad you have to double protect. But because Jairo's getting the Dragonite out of here, getting rid of that Disable lock and going into the Ogerpon instead, it's sort of just like you have a Pokemon that's going to be a little bit awkward, and that's all. Like, Ogerpon is valuable, and you don't really want it to have to take damage this turn. Still, I think Jairo's making like his correct decision here. I think this is the best play that he could go for.
Yeah, it's kind of the play you have to go for with the Sash Calyrex. Astral Barrage firing off here isn't going to do too much damage. The Shadow Shield on Lunala is broken, though, so that's actually a lot of damage. Moongeist Beam, and I feel like this is a knockoff. You still have to deal with the Ogerpon in the back for Ario, and that's going to be a little scary, but, I mean, the Incineroar...
Oh, Wisp.
Oh.
So, Wisp onto Ogerpon, like, looks cool there, but the thing is, I don't think this was going to save him from just, like, Astral Barrage, Follow Me spam. And this is really the big difference between Lunala and Calyrex, is Calyrex, like, its ghost moves hit both targets. Lunala, you can only go for one. So even if, like, let's say whatever Luca wanted to do that turn, I think he had to address two Pokemon, and he was only going to be allowed to address one of them because they effectively both still had like a Focus Sash in play, or, you know, in Ogerpon's case, a Sturdy. I think Jairo actually had the game locked up at that point.
Yeah, and that was very well played from both players. Kind of feeling to see that how strong, again, that Focus Sash Calyrex is, knowing that you're guaranteed to live the hit and then fire off another attack. It does so much damage, and it does a consistent amount. And Luca, unfortunately, that game wasn't able to weave in something like a Calm Mind to maybe eat those Astral Barrages a bit better. And I think that was kind of the downfall of his game.
That's true. Just having like one Calm Mind boost up, or maybe making it so that Calyrex would have struggled a little bit more to get a Grimnay, would have meant that those Astral Barrages in the end game were doing just a little bit less, and that could have been the difference there. Still, I think Jairo figured out a really good way to play that. Like, even after the Screamtail adjustment, kind of like the improvement to Luca's game plans, Jairo's like, nah, I still have a plan here.
Yeah. But with that, that's going to be both of our top 4 games. We're going to take a very, very short break before we hop into our finals game to give us and the players a little bit of a break before they start the final match, which you all should be excited for. It's going to be a good one, but give us a little bit. We'll be back soon for more VGC action here at the Collectors Emporium Mega Cup.